Alright, so I know most people do some story time videos, and it just kind of occurred to me that, well, I was reading the fast line instead of doing schoolwork like a good college student, because this is more interesting to read than a textbook, because, well, it has a bunch of pictures and whatnot. And see, then I'm going to hold it upside down, but right there I opened it right up to Randall Brothers. But, I was reading through it and I saw a Gale 4625 SX skid loader for sale. They wanted 9,800. It had like 4,000 hours on it or whatnot. But when I was a little kid, probably 7 or 8, I'd say, I learned how to run the skid loader. That was what I learned to run the skid loader in, was a Gale 4625 SX skid loader. We sold it. It only lasted about 2,500 hours or something. The engine was going bad. It had a Kubota diesel in it. That skid loader left a bad taste in Pap's mouth, and he vowed never again to own a piece of equipment with a Kubota diesel in it. But I remember it pretty well. We were loading chicken manure. We used to get chicken manure from my uncle, and we were loading chicken manure with that skid loader, and he looked at me and said, "It's your turn." I said, "Okay." I said, how do you run it?" He said, "Just get in it and find out." So I got in it, and he did tell me where the throttle was, because most new operators that never run a piece of equipment before, they either shove it wide open or don't give it any throttle at all and stall it right away. But he told me where the foot throttle was, so I knew enough to give it some throttle. But yeah, he said load the manure spreader, so I loaded the manure spreader, and yeah, and that pretty much got me hooked on equipment. I was already running tractors and whatnot. I was running them up and down the road and all that stuff. But I have another story time involving that skid loader too. Right where the grain head's sitting behind the, right where my grain head's sitting behind the shed. That story I can't tell until I actually walk out back and show everyone. That was my first experience ever almost flipping a skid loader. But yeah, my first time running the skid loader, brought to you by reading the fast line. And actually, on the subject of that skid loader, I was on Machinery Trader one day, and I was just scrolling through looking for bargain skid loaders and whatnot, and I found an Allegheny Ag's website. They had a Gale 4625 SX for sale. It had like 2,700 hours on it or something, and that's about right when we sold it. We had sold it. It needed a new engine, and the bearings were going bad. The main seals in the engine were leaking. I think it was just a lemon, because it was a real good skid loader. But I found it for sale, and I looked at it and I studied it, and because just something about the picture didn't look right. Well, it looked really familiar. And I had looked and looked and looked, and then finally, they had put up more pictures of the machine with the bucket on it. And we had sold it with a 66-inch low-profile tooth bucket that didn't have the little teeth that are on the end of it. They had all fell off, and yeah, all the little teeth had fell off, so we were just using it without teeth because we'd never put any teeth on it. So it was just the little shanks that went on there, and the teeth were missing. So I looked and looked, and then I read in the description they had put a new engine in it. So I showed the ad to Pap, because I had a Gale 4510 at the time, but we were still looking for a decent skid loader, because mine was an absolute piece of junk, which that's a whole nother story in itself. That's on what not to do when buying a skid loader. But we were still looking at it, so I showed him the ad, and he was like, well, I ought to get down there and buy the skid loader, because it's cheaper to just rebuy it back at $8,900 for what they wanted for the skid loader than what it was for me to put a new engine in it. So The engine for that machine, it was like $6,000 to buy a new engine and have it put in. But so 6,000 plus whatever the machine was worth. I mean, we were looking at probably 11,000. But we ended up not going and getting it. Probably as all you can tell, we went 3 years without having a skid loader that'll lift over 1,000 pounds, and then finally he went up to the John Deere dealer and bought the New Holland skid loader, which that was a good deal. I think he only paid $6,200 for it. It has 7,666 hours on it right now, and that's a darn good skid loader too. But well, this video is getting a little long-winded, but as always, thanks for watching, and please comment, rate, and subscribe. Have a good day, guys.